laser beam that blasted those ships.
Very clever, young man. Now lock them up.
Remember Saturday mornings in 1960s? While your friends were watching talking animals chase each other with mallets, there was one show that treated you like you had a brain. A show with real danger, real science, real adventure. Jonny Quest. But here's what nobody told you back then, and what most people still don't know today. Almost everything about that show was a complete accident. The dog wasn't supposed to exist. The creator got fired from his own show. And the reason it only lasted one season? Well, that's not what you think. I spent the last month digging through archives, old interviews, and forgotten documents to uncover the truth about the cartoon that changed everything. And what I found? It's going to change how you remember those Saturday mornings forever. Before we dive in, let me paint you a picture. It's September 18th, 1964. You're sitting cross-legged in front of your family's console television. Maybe you've got a bowl of cereal. Maybe your kid brother is bugging you. And then that theme music hits. You'd never heard anything like it. That wasn't cartoon music. That was movie music. And what came next? It wasn't a cartoon either. Not really. Today we're going to reveal 15 facts about Jonny Quest that will blow your mind. Some of them are heartwarming. Some are shocking. And one of them explains why your grandkids have never experienced anything quite like what you had. Let's start with the most unbelievable one. Fact number 1. Jonny Quest was never supposed to be Jonny Quest. Here's something that'll knock your socks off. The show you loved was originally supposed to be about Jack Armstrong, the all-American boy. Remember him from radio? Doug Wildey, the brilliant artist who created the look of the show, spent 3 months designing everything for Jack Armstrong. He built the characters, drew the vehicles, created that hovercraft scene with the natives throwing spears. You know, the one from the closing credits? But then Hanna-Barbera couldn't get the rights. Too expensive. So what did they do? They said, Doug, we love everything you've done. Just change the name. And that's how Jack Armstrong became Jonny Quest. Everything else? That was already there. The adventures, the exotic locations, even that incredible hovercraft sequence that made it into the final credits. All designed for a completely different show. But wait, because the name change wasn't the only last-minute decision that shaped the show you remember. Fact number 2, the dog was a mistake, and the creator hated him. You loved Bandit, didn't you? That scrappy little bulldog with the black mask? Well, Doug Wildey couldn't stand him. See, Wildey wanted Jonny to have an exotic pet, something that matched the international adventure vibe. He drew up designs for a small white cheetah. He pitched a monkey, arguing that a monkey could do things in stories that a dog never could: climb, grab things, create real plot possibilities. But the network insisted on a dog. Why? Merchandising. They wanted a stuffed toy they could sell to kids like you. Wildey was so frustrated that he refused to design Bandit himself. He handed that job off to Dick Bickenbach, who'd worked on the Flintstones. And you know what's ironic? When I talk to people your age today, almost everyone remembers Bandit. The network was right about one thing: that dog was memorable. But here's what really made the show special, and it had nothing to do with cute animals. Fact number 3, it was the first cartoon to treat you like an adult. Think about what else was on TV in 1964. Quick Draw McGraw, Huckleberry Hound, Yogi Bear, all great shows, but they were cartoons. Jonny Quest was different. The creators researched real locations. When Jonny went to Egypt, those pyramids were based on photographs of actual pyramids. The Amazon jungle, real geography. The Arctic, real survival challenges. They consulted with scientists, with military advisors, with explorers. They wanted to make sure that even though the specific adventures were fictional, they could happen. The dangers were real. The science was plausible. And here's the thing. You felt that, didn't you? Even as a kid, you knew this show was different. It respected your intelligence. It didn't talk down to you, but the network almost killed it before it ever aired. And the reason why reveals something shocking about how close we came to never having Jonny Quest at all. Fact number 4, ABC didn't want it until they saw the pilot. When Hanna-Barbera first pitched Jonny Quest to ABC, the network executives were skeptical. An adventure cartoon? In prime time? With realistic violence and complex plots? Kids won't understand it, they said. Parents won't let them watch it. But then, Hanna-Barbera did something brilliant. They created a test pilot that was so stunning, so cinematic, so unlike anything else on television that it blew the clients out of the screening room. That's a direct quote from Joe Barbera himself. The network bought the series on the spot. But here's the catch, and this is where it gets interesting. They bought it with one condition that would ultimately doom the show. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, you need to know about the voice that brought Jonny to life. Fact number 5. Jonny's voice went on to become a Hollywood legend. Close your eyes and remember Jonny's voice.
This is Johnny, coming to you from Davy Jones' Locker.
Got it? That was Tim Matheson. He was just a teenager when he recorded those episodes. And you know what? He went on to have an incredible career. He was in Animal House. He was in The West Wing. He's been working in Hollywood for 60 years. But here's the touching part. In interviews, Matheson still talks about Jonny Quest with genuine affection. He remembers the recording sessions, how the entire cast would gather in one studio, just like the old radio dramas, and perform their scenes together. That's why the dialogue felt so natural. They weren't recording separately in isolation like most cartoons. They were acting together. And speaking of the cast, there's a voice you heard in almost every episode that you definitely recognize, but you'd never guess who it was. Fact number 6. Race Bannon was based on a real Hollywood star. Remember Race Bannon? That white-haired, square-jawed bodyguard who could fight off 10 bad guys without breaking a sweat? He was modeled after actor Jeff Chandler. And I mean directly modeled. Doug Wildey saw Chandler in movies and thought, that's exactly what a government agent should look like. The white hair, the strong jaw, even the red shirt Race wore, all inspired by Chandler. But here's the eerie part. Jeff Chandler died in 1961, 3 years before Jonny Quest aired. So, in a way, Race Bannon became a tribute to a Hollywood star who never knew he'd inspired one of television's most iconic characters. And Race wasn't the only character with a secret origin story. Wait until you hear about Haji. Fact number 7. Haji almost didn't exist, and here's why he was created. You remember Haji, right? Johnny's adopted brother from India with the mystical powers? He was created because of Bandit. Stay with me here. After the network forced them to add the dog, the writers realized they had a problem. Now Jonny would spend half the show talking to a dog. That's not exactly riveting television. So they created Haji, another kid close to Johnny's age who could actually talk back, create dialogue, and develop real friendship dynamics. Haji was based on the actor Sabu, who'd been in movies like The Jungle Book back in the 1940s. And here's a wild coincidence. When they were casting the voice for Haji, Sabu's own son, Paul Sabu, auditioned for the part. He didn't get it, but how's that for coming full circle? Now, Haji's magic powers were controversial even back then, and there's a reason for that, which reveals something fascinating about how the show was made. Fact number 8. The show was too violent, but not in the way you think. Here's something that might surprise you. Jonny Quest was considered shockingly violent for 1964. But not because of fistfights or explosions. It was violent because people actually died. In most cartoons, the bad guy would get bonked on the head and see stars. In Jonny Quest, the bad guy would fall into a pit of alligators and you'd hear him scream. The show didn't show blood, but it showed consequences. One episode had a villain get shot on screen. Another had bad guys' vehicles explode with them inside. The body count in some episodes was higher than in many primetime dramas. And you know what? The network let it slide. Why? Because the violence wasn't cartoonish. It was realistic. It had weight. It had meaning. It made the danger feel real, which made you care about whether Jonny and his friends would make it out alive. But this realism came with a price tag that would ultimately end the show. Fact number 9. It was the most expensive cartoon ever made, and that killed it. Here's the fact that changes everything you thought you knew about why Jonny Quest only lasted one season. It wasn't canceled because of bad ratings. It was canceled because it cost too much money. Every episode of Jonny Quest cost twice what a normal Hanna-Barbera cartoon cost. They used a technique called limited animation, but they combined it with detailed painted backgrounds based on real photographs. They hired top voice actors. They used a full orchestra for the music. And here's the kicker. ABC wanted a second season. They were ready to renew it. But Bill Hanna said no. He looked at the numbers and realized that even with the network's money, they were losing money on every episode. The studio couldn't afford to keep making the show at that level of quality. So they stopped. 26 episodes, one perfect season. And that was it. But wait, because there's a twist to this story that nobody talks about. Fact number 10, the show was filmed in color. When most homes had black and white, TVS. In 1964, only 13% of American homes had color television sets. 13%. And yet, Hanna-Barbera made Jonny Quest in full color. Why? Because they were thinking ahead. They knew color TV was coming, and they wanted the show to have a long life in reruns. That decision paid off. When color TVS became common in the late 1960s and 1970s, Jonny Quest looked contemporary. It didn't feel dated like black and white cartoons did. Kids who were born after the show ended discovered it in reruns and fell in love with it, just like you did. But here's what really made those colors pop, and it's something you heard every single week. Fact number 11. The theme music was composed by a legend, and it almost didn't happen. That theme song. You can hear it right now, can't you? That distinctive guitar riff, the urgent drums, the sense of adventure packed into 30 seconds. That was composed by Hoyt Curtin, who also did the music for The Flintstones and The Jetsons. But Jonny Quest was his masterpiece. Curtin did something revolutionary. He mixed rock guitar with orchestral instruments. In 1964, that was unheard of for television. Most TV themes were purely orchestral, but Curtin understood that Jonny Quest needed to sound modern, edgy, different. And he didn't just compose the theme. He created original music for virtually every scene in every episode. Different music for the Arctic than for the jungle. Different music for tension than for discovery. He composed like he was scoring a feature film, not a Saturday morning cartoon. That music is why the show felt so cinematic. It's why your heart raced during the action scenes. It's why you felt like you were really there. But the music almost didn't happen because the composer they originally wanted turned them down. We got Curtin by accident. And thank goodness we did. Now, here's something about the show's creation that'll really surprise you. Fact number 12. The closing credits used footage from a show that never aired. Remember those closing credits? The ones with the hovercraft and the natives throwing spears? That wasn't from Jonny Quest. That was from the Jack Armstrong pilot that never got made. When they couldn't get the rights to Jack Armstrong and had to create Jonny Quest instead, they'd already animated that expensive hovercraft sequence. So they recycled it for the closing credits, even though that scene never appeared in any actual episode. For years, kids like you wondered, when does Jonny fight those natives with the hovercraft? The answer? Never. It was from a different show entirely. But here's what's really fascinating. That footage became iconic anyway. It's one of the most memorable parts of the show, and it was never even supposed to be there. Speaking of things that weren't supposed to be there, let's talk about what happened to the show's creator. Fact number 13. Doug Wildey lost control of his own creation. This one's heartbreaking. Doug Wildey created Jonny Quest. He designed the characters, developed the look, established the tone. It was his baby. But as production ramped up and they needed to produce episodes quickly, Hanna-Barbera brought in more and more artists and writers. Wildey could only personally oversee about 18 of the 26 episodes. In interviews later, he said, It is a factory, and once it starts, you have to turn out so much material because of deadlines that you can't keep an eye on everything. He watched his creation slip away from him, episode by episode. And here's the really painful part. In later reruns, Hanna-Barbera actually removed Wild E's signature from the credits. The man who created the show you loved had his name erased from it. But Wild E got the last laugh, in a way, because his influence on animation lasted far beyond Jonny Quest. Fact number 14, Jonny Quest changed animation forever, and you can see its influence today. After Jonny Quest proved that audiences wanted intelligent, realistic adventure animation, everything changed. Hanna-Barbera created Space Ghost, the Herculoids, and Birdman, all following the Jonny Quest formula. Other studios took notice. The idea that cartoons could be sophisticated, that they could respect their audience's intelligence, that they could tell real stories with real stakes, that all came from Jonny Quest. And it's still influencing creators today. The people who make shows like The Venture Bros and Archer have openly said they were inspired by Jonny Quest. The DNA of that 1964 show is still alive in animation. But here's the most touching legacy of all, and it's something that connects directly to you. Fact number 15, you were part of something special, and you knew it even then. Here's the final fact, and it's the most important one. Jonny Quest only lasted one season, 26 episodes. But people your age, people who watched it during that original run in 1964 and 1965, have never forgotten it. Researchers have studied this phenomenon. They've interviewed people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, and almost everyone remembers Jonny Quest vividly. They remember specific episodes. They remember how it made them feel. They remember that it was different. You weren't imagining it. It was special. In a sea of talking animals and slapstick comedy, Jonny Quest treated you like you mattered. It took you seriously. It showed you the world, Egypt, India, the Amazon, the Arctic, and it made you believe you could have adventures too. And here's the beautiful part. You passed that on. You told your kids about it, maybe your grandkids. When the show came back in reruns in the 1980s and 1990s, new generations discovered it because people like you kept the memory alive. 26 episodes, one season, 60 years ago, and it's still here, still remembered, still loved. So there you have it. 15 facts about the show that made Saturday morning special. From the dog that wasn't supposed to exist, to the creator who lost his own show, to the network that canceled it despite wanting more. Jonny Quest's real story is as wild as the adventures themselves. But here's what I didn't tell you. This one show changed animation forever. And the ripple effect it created? That's an even better story. And before you go, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Leave a comment below telling me your favorite Jonny Quest memory. And share this video with someone who grew up watching Saturday morning cartoons. They'll thank you for the trip down memory lane. Thanks for watching. And remember, adventure is out there. It always has been.